Yep, we're up and ready to go. Hi and welcome for SUSE Tools workshop. This time, same as, I don't know, Liv, how many times have we done that? Hack Week lightning talks, at least the third time or so.
I think so, yeah.
We had a Etherpad document. Would you like to share or should I share?
I would like to share the document, yes.
Go ahead, please.
Let's see. So hopefully you can see the
Yep,
screen nicely.
cool.
So we have a few submissions. In case anyone who's joining wants to add, feel free to, while we're starting off with the first ones here. And yeah, as usual, the format is pretty easy going. 5 minutes or so, and present the way you find most easy or approachable. And yeah, I guess we can get into the first one, which is mine. So I will change to my slides. So you should see my slides this time.
Yep.
So my project was called Make More Sense of OpenQA Test Results Using AI. So this is me exploring AI in various cases and more specifically in a QA context to see where it might become more useful or maybe not so useful. So I started out with a user story. So let's say Alice on average tries to understand test failures. That's obviously simplifying the story a bit. If you imagine in practice, you might be looking at really complex test results and log files and such. But let's keep the premise simple for now. So the goals are leverage a chat interface to help Alison create a model from scratch based on data from OpenQA. And that seems like something that would be really handy eventually to know how to do that. And maybe a proof of concept for automated analysis of OpenQA test results, which potentially would be really cool to have. So, can you tell me what the problem is? So, I tried, among other things, Open Web UI. If you don't know this one, that's an open source chat interface that can use different LLMs such as Llama, Gemma, Mistral, and other ones. Those are the three I tried out to see how they compare anyway. And yeah, using the same way that you might use other chat interfaces you might know. And yeah, so I would ask, tell me how to do this. I want to test stuff. I have these tests here. Can you give me some example code? And by the way, can you help me understand how to use you better? Is also a question I ended up asking. So more specifically, you might know the concept of rubber ducking in programming. So that's not originally what I strictly was seeking to do. So my approach was pretty much, please have a look at this URL and tell me what's going on there. And that did not really give me a useful result. So I tried to phrase more clearly what kind of error I might be expecting. And I started explaining how the needles work separate to the log files in an OpenQA job. And yeah, it turned out it really was, in the end, more rubber ducking than it was an automated analysis, at least from what I achieved so far. So I definitely found that phrasing questions more specifically helped to an extent. But as a sort of interactive debugging companion, I really needed to have or be the expert ultimately to make sense of it. And yeah, so my other thing was I wanted to use TensorFlow which has a nice Python API to make a model and see what to do with it, put some test cases in it, and train those. So I was looking at JSON files that describe the test states and log files, like produced by Eyes2Video, for instance, and basically asked what I need to do to make that happen. And to an extent, that was really great. And in this instance, I found it was definitely more helpful than the debugging advice on tests. But I also found I had to be very specific. So I had to, if you will, insist on what the format of the files would be, that it gives me code exactly for my input files, that it doesn't tell me something like insert magical processing function here, because obviously that's not useful when I don't actually know how to do that. And in the end, that's not even super difficult, but I had to be precise on what I wanted. And by the way, this code is on GitHub in case you want to have a look. There'll be links later. And yeah, so this is probably the fun one if we have a minute to demonstrate that. I hope the sound will work if I play this.
Okay, I guess we have a bit of time because there's still a space in the schedule. So I will give you one extra minute, and if you don't mind.
Okay, let me see. I hope this works.
All right, so we're diving into OpenQA testing, but with a bit of a Python twist.
Interesting.
Yeah, not the usual way people go about it.
Right.
Which is why this deep dive is extra interesting, right?
Yeah, definitely.
We've got a few articles, even some code examples, just to help us unpack this whole thing.
Okay.
So for anyone who might be new to this whole thing, OpenQA, it's like this powerful testing framework, and it's used by like every major Linux distribution.
Oh, yeah.
OpenSUSE, Fedora, Debian, you name it, all using it to make sure their software is top notch.
Yeah, it really is kind of the unsung hero behind all those smooth, stable operating systems that, we all rely on.
For sure.
But that sounds like something we can make more out of that.
Yeah, so I hope that was fun. Yeah, so I think it's definitely a good thing to explore, and in that way the audio test also did, because I found it does actually give a different feel to it. The way that you write or read something or discuss it gives a different impression of it. But yeah, ultimately, I think using AI usefully more or less shifts the expertise, at least into how to use the tooling, at least at this point. That's definitely not something to just rely on, but yeah, I think it's definitely something worth exploring. Yeah, so that's it, I guess. Thank you.
Cool. I guess, yeah, so this is certainly a topic that we will follow up with. I'd say we continue with the next. Taylor, you're good to go?
Yes. Let me see if I'm able to share my screen. Do you see my screen?
Yep.
I see you sharing the screen, which is my screen.
Yeah. Okay, I'm ready to go.
Go ahead.
So, what I did was trying to design my own keyboard from scratch. And, well, apart from motivation, let's see what I would like to try to build. I like to try to build a split keyboard. Split keyboard means that your keyboard is done in two different places that you are supposed to place on two sides of your desk or body. And they say that it should be more ergonomic for you. I would like to try. And yes, I have big hands and I like to hammering my keyboard. I like to try different arrangement of keys, and so means I like to try to place them on columns more than row, staggered rows. Yes, I like to give a try to thumb cluster. You will see when I will show you a picture. I'm not interested to have wireless keyboard. I like this kind of switches, and that's it. And yes, I would like to be able to change them. So I'm not an expert of mechanical keyboard at all, so was pretty fun. Was also mostly to learn something new. And so where I start from? I started from taking some measurement of myself. Was like drawing my hands and try to like move it and take some measurement of where my fingers are able to go. So you will see I really like this idea that I like a keyboard to fit the mechanics of my hands. And well, then was about translating this stuff in Inkscape, mostly because I would like to be able to measure stuff. But then what I should do next? You have different kind of approach from this point, and I found something cool to try. And yes, there's this amazing project called Ergogen that it's about you can define your keyboard like a YAML file, and then from here you can try to stuff and get some hardware design file out from it. So let's try to. This one is self-hosted. Let me try to put my data there, and I can show you. Yes, you see, I'm placing some YAML file there, and I have my keyboard layout printed out, and I can also like change. It's like parametric. Let me try, for example, open hand. Let me try to change. You see, I have the layout changed, and from here I can generate some stuff. Oh, there's an error. Oi, oi, oi. But forget about it. And the file that you get generated is KiCad PCB layout. And so I have my layout here, I think. Let's see. And from this point, it was about drawing, manually drawing it, manually routing. So means connecting electrically all the stuff around, and was fun. Was pretty fun, and that's it.
Yep. All right. Thank you for
Very cool.
keeping your own time.
Welcome.
So that's pretty cool. I have one question: is do you want to follow up with that, like in your free time, in a follow-up Hackweek project?
Yes, for sure. It's I would like to be able to produce it at the end, be able to have it materially in my hand and not just in a CAD on the PC. So yes, I like to try to proceed on this one.
Sounds good.
Yes, yes, yes. Uh, let me show something physical that I made. Where it was, because at sometimes I was also bored to work on the PC only, so I built something to, you see, there was a moment for my drill. And yes, it's like drilling holes on a PCB and try to mount switches that looks good here, but was not so good.
Yeah, especially if you're not working in a fully rectangular.
Yeah, exactly. But all in all, I was able to build something. It's like this stuff, you see, and even try to load some firmware on it. So, and get some pulses. This one means that the controller is scanning my keys. And so, yes, was super fun this year.
All right. Okay. So what's next?
Next would be yours, I think.
Yep. All right. I'll switch over to another screen. All right. So the Hack Week project that I was trying to look into is sustainable, efficient use of hardware in data centers, like in general. But of course, we have some examples available to us, which are at SUSE, different labs and data centers that we have. The goals that I wanted to follow are to get a let me make that a little bigger now. I wanted to have a general overview about the current power usage of SUSE LSB QE hardware in our data centers, like the hardware that we own or loan or use in our department in the various data centers. Having also generalized an overview about what do you commonly do in industry to ensure that there is sufficient hardware usage. Thinking about budgeting information available to end users and the concept about using existing hardware for multiple workloads, which would basically be one step trying to make more efficient use. So the first three are about just visualizing the data, and the fourth about one of multiple potential ideas to improve. And I must say that I did not reach as far as all at all. I was, basically trying to keep some progress here, but there's only a note about the first 2 days, because then unfortunately I got interrupted due to the work-related reasons where I needed to look into other topics. What I found out already is what's generally possible for operating systems to know about their own power usage. I guess many of you might have already seen information. Sorry about the broken format here. For example, if you have a notebook commonly knows how much power it draws, like from a Linux system. You can just read that. But for server hardware, especially if it's let's say different kind of hardware, different kind of architecture, types of machines, then maybe the same approach cannot be used. So, for example, I tried what would be a more exotic setup, so something that is much further away than the standard notebook, IBM Power 8 machine. And in that case, maybe as expected, I couldn't find any information from the system itself about power usage. So, there's some sensors about the temperature, but all packages that would be helping on a notebook maybe don't help there, and there's no power start information, there's no PLP start, sensors information is all not there. So what I did is I took a look into PDUs, power distribution units. I just want to show that one part because I guess it can in a more general way show what's possible. So we have like, you know, multiple outlets for multiple machines, and what one can see here is the active power that is drawn on the individual outlets. And if we know then there's a specific machine on outlet A3, then we see like, okay, currently it's drawing like 350 watts, okay? There's also an energy counter, so we already know since like 2 years how much energy was used for that one specific outlet. And then the idea that I'm having is that we can use this information and propagate it to the users of the machine. And then there's one more specific thing which I thought about, which is OpenKA. Okay, so let's take a look into OpenKA. And we have tests, and I'm just selecting any random test, like the very last one that finished. And we can see that this test, it ran for some time, and it was obviously running on a certain worker. And if we know the information from a worker on which hardware it is running, and we know how much power the hardware is using, then my idea is that we could add more information about it. Like, for example, here on the web UI, we could say the power that the machine uses. In the most simple case, a manual value that we could write into the configuration, like, you know, 350 watts. We write it into the OpenKA worker config to say OpenKA worker 27 as total takes 350 watts. My idea is like, well, let's assume we run 20 instances there. So every instance more or less accounts for 350 times divided by 20. Plus, of course, you can account for some overhead, like the PDU itself takes some some power. Related servers, DHCP server switch needs to be accounted for. And so we could link a power usage to a worker. And if we have that, then going back to the job, we could say, well, this job ran for 1 hour 38. So a rough estimate would be like, okay, if that machine and that instance is like using a tenth or divided by 20 of the 350 watts times the hour, then we have the energy used by that job more or less. And going one step further from the idea, my idea is to say, well, we can, you know, if you're logged in and then is like you're about to press the retry button, then maybe we can give the information to the user to, you know, not just blindly hit the retry button, because there is a cost associated with that. There's a cost as in how much kilowatt hours is this likely to take? How much maybe CO2 equivalent is that going to take, depending on what's in the current electricity grid, on where the machine is running? And also, in the end, like the cost in, like, I don't know, like in financial currency, in euros, okay? So we could say this would cost 10 euros to retry. Of course, there's also cost in humans, like wasting their time and trying to understand a failure, or going back to what Liv said is like, okay, I'm going to rubber duck with the AI chatbot to understand what's going on. So maybe one is more expensive than the other. So, you know, I would really like to provide just the data from all those points to incorporate together. So that's my idea for the future. Yep. Thank you.
Very cool, thank you.
Yep. Next topic by Tina, who unfortunately couldn't make it, but she did really nicely, properly prepare up front. So we already checked that you can play audio. Maybe you want to you want to play it as well, and I guess I can
can.
record it.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. Let me start the screen share.
In February. Hello. So my Hack Week project this year was about YAML, surprisingly. And to give you some background, I gave a talk at FOSDEM this year in February about YAML. It was a lightning talk, and it was about the differences between YAML 1.1 and 1.2 and other stuff. And one part of the differences I want to show you in an example here. So probably many of you know PyYAML. And here we have a script and a YAML string. And it's a list of country codes, EN, ESDE, and so on. And now what happens if we load it? Do you expect anything unknown? Maybe not. But you can see if we load it, we get the country codes, and the last one is just false. So it loads the Boolean in PyYAML, and that's because the no stands for a Boolean false, because yes and no and on and off are Booleans in YAML. And here you have the different schemas. So if we look here in the middle, unfortunately, I cannot select any text in here, but here you see the YAML 1.1 types, and you see a whole lot of Booleans. So Y, yes, no, N, true, false, on and off. And if you look up in the YAML 1.2 course, which should be the default, it's just true and false in upper, lowercase, and mixed case. And when I gave the talk, I said it's really bad that so many libraries still don't implement YAML 1.2. And yeah, we are working on that. So I'm working with other people on making that. I'm also contributing to PyYAML. And now let's look at this output. So this is the second output, and it's the YAML core loader. And here we get the expected string NO because it's loading YAML 1.2. So YAML core is a package that I created in spring this year. It's on top of PyYAML, so it's nothing new. It just uses PyYAML and adds some classes on top. And my Hack Week project was then about the Perl module, YAML XS. And so some years ago, I wrote YAML PP. It's a pure Perl module that implements YAML 1.2, but YAML XS still implemented not even YAML 1.1, but its own stuff. And let's look at this. So the first one is the old YAML XS loader. So it's a binding to libyaml, so it's fast, and that's why it's still preferred by many people. And the first output, so here we see true in different cases and on. And we see that only the lowercase true is loaded as a Boolean, and the others are all loaded as strings. So the bang bang one is kind of the representation of a Boolean in Perl. And the lower output is the new interface, which is also object-oriented, and by default, it implements YAML 1.2. And the first three are now all Booleans, and the fourth one is just a string like it's expected. And also the new is also that you don't have to use global variables anymore. So this is kind of, so you would use package variables to influence the behavior. And in the new interface, you just have an object with options, and then you can now use the object and use load string and dump string on it multiple times. And yeah, that's my HackFree project. Thank you for listening. Have fun with it.
That concludes the topics we have on the list. Any submissions? Now's the chance. If there's anything you'd like to present. If you don't have slides, that's also fine. Yeah, go ahead.
So one thing, I was looking yesterday at the HackWeek project from Tina, and I'm not sure if she managed to fully do the implementation, but I guess that eventually this is something that is going to end.
So let's say in the ecosystem, most likely, I would say maybe not upstream OpenGate, but some pulling, some scripting, some import, export, conversion. I would say that those are all possibilities. It depends a bit if you're going to rewrite OpenGate in Rust in before, right?
That doesn't have anything to do with it, because for instance, the test and the test distribution has this lib, this library for YAML processing.
Yes.
And my project of rewriting things in Rust is only for ISO2 videos, so it has nothing to do with.
Sure, no, that I was
with
joking.
YAML management.
Those are not definite plans.
Yeah. And then on the other hand, we have a lot of places where the YAML merging could be useful. So here the question is, how feasible do you see it to add that directly into OpenQA, given that we are moving towards more YAML and less tables in the database?
So, sorry, was that a question?
Sorry?
What did you have a question there, or
the question is, how feasible do you see adding the support for the merging feature as well?
Yeah.
Effectively making it part of the
scenario definitions in OpenGate. The scenario definitions in OpenGate. Yes. Generally I see that as feasible and also a goal that we should follow up with. So
awesome.
What we can do right now with scenario definitions is do everything in one file. Of course, that has a scalability limit, like a very low scalability limit. You cannot apply that for any more complex projects like Osado. And our reference there is Osado, showing like you want to define multiple thousands of tests for multiple
Exactly.
products, how to do it so that everything is in the Git repository, in one main Git repository, is understandable whenever tests are scheduled, like where do settings come from, is maintainable by the maintainers, and is fully traceable, right? Those basically are the goals that we need to follow to make that a reality. And I'm just saying that I'm open to the actual implementation of how much of that makes sense to do in OpenGA itself, or in the test distribution, or intermediate tooling in between, or any other place to
Okay,
best
I
fulfill
see now
all those goals.
where you are. Like, so I think that we can discuss this later, but I think that the support for the YAML merging, for instance, can be added. And also, because we are using basically YAML in OpenQA.
Yes.
So if there is a bit more work put into helping Tina, then we get everything else for free.
Okay.
That's where my head is at.
So you help with work, which is not for free, and then you get stuff for free in the end. So yeah, kind of. We can wait for 10 more Hack Week projects, and then we have everything for free. That's true. Or what I'm saying is I'm ready to invest resources. So even if it's not for free, we will succeed. Okay. Right. Okay, cool. Yeah, then while we have you on the line, for 69, you also asked about, did any of you play with the Harvester cluster open platform? I did play with the Harvester cluster open platform like in before, or let's say it's becoming part of our daily work. I had that mentioned in my Hack Week project as well. That's something that we could try out. I mean, already some years ago, I set up some Kubernetes cluster on testing machines which are unused at the time. So I guess something like that could be done again. And what I'm thinking there, I'm just talking personally about my relation to my big project. I would like to hear from others as well. What I was thinking is to say, like, okay, can we generalize the use of machines? Because right now we have hardware which is dedicated to run as OpenGA workers, for example, or as QE testing machines, and they are not fully used 24/7, right? If they would be used all 24/7, then it's fine to completely dedicate the resources. But we are basically have some idle time, and I would be happy to dedicate those resources to better means in the meantime, if anybody uses it for anything. And also it goes vice versa. If you want to scale up, maybe there are some searches you want to run a lot of OpenGA tests. It would be nice to have access to a more dynamic and generic environment where you could like automatically spawn on request, let's say from open platform, OpenGA workers. Just like spawn OpenGA workers in the Harvester cluster on demand.
Yeah. I mean, because I'm thinking, I don't know, in the future we can even try and push or help to see if we can get also a Harvester cluster for OpenSUSE if that's not already available. Yeah. So that there is this mix in between as well. So the things that we are using internally are also available, and that the solutions work for the main instance or the public instance as well.
Yes.
So that's mostly the question right now of if anybody else is looking into not just creating a VM and all of this, but more in terms of at least getting some training on how high the learning curve is. Because at this point, I barely know what that is, what it does. and all I know is how to create a VM using one command that I stole from somebody else. That's that's it. But we're looking into Terraform, for instance, to use that to create the VMs on open platform. And we have a small proof of concept. And yeah, maybe I'm just looking for a place where there could be some level of collaboration. But that's internal for discussion as well.
Yep. Okay, guys, anybody else with some questions, ideas, follow-ups?
I can share that
I said
plan to
anybody else.
follow up. Well, nobody else is talking.
Okay, fine.
One thing, I will most likely, well, not most likely, I will follow up the Rust ISO2 video implementation through Google Summer of Code. So if anybody is interested in helping with the design of the proposals, that would be very appreciated.
Yeah, I would be interested. I think that's a really cool project, definitely.
Okay. So I'd like to just mention the next SUSE Q Tools workshop instance will be on the 13th of December when we will do the roadmap review after the 2 months period. So that would be a roadmap discussion 2024 December. So that's it. Thank you guys. Bye.